Take a little peek.
Okay, so now we need to do those petals or the leaves and the stem. So with the leaf, I'm just going to go in with a mixture of sap green and olive green. And I'm just kind of using that pointy end of my watercolor brush. And I have some dots in there from the pink that I splattered, but that's okay. They add goodness. And then right here, I'm just being really careful to not really push on my brush, to just use that very fine tip at the end. And then I'm going to do the same with the others. And I'm pretty wet in my brush, so just remember that that's part of the important part of watercolor, is just keeping it wet. It goes back to not having that same control, but that's part of what makes watercolor good. So you almost have to look at it like when you were in art class, when you were a little kid and you were having fun and you were finger painting and all that good stuff. So in the long stem, I'm going to go ahead and use this little fine brush. So this is kind of almost looking like a big mess. When I look at it, I'm going, whoa, this is a fun picture. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So, I'm going to go into the stem here, and I'm going to just use that little tiny brush to go down the stem. So you don't want to push very hard. You want to kind of use the lightness of it. You know, I'm going outside of the lines all over the place, and I just think that's a lot of fun. You know, if your painting's looking like a little kid did it, then I think that's pretty cool, because that means you had a lot of fun with it. So don't even worry about that, and don't worry about sharing, because everybody is loving everybody's work. You guys are doing awesome. Yeah, I don't even think that you know, and I'm sure that you're insecure about it. I'm sure that you feel like you're not as good as everybody else, but that is just a lie. You guys are doing fantastic. I'm going to go ahead in the eye with some watercolor, some dark Payne's gray watercolor. That's kind of, Payne's gray is kind of the black of watercolor. It's a really, really, really dark blue gray color. I'm just going to go ahead and darken up those eyes because I'm not happy with the pen that I used, the marker. Okay, so let's see here. So go ahead and to these flowers under your little birdies and add some more dimension. I'm going into a rose color here, and I've got this little tiny brush. I think I'll do those little half circle patterns just under here, and then just like a little, maybe even go down like this. But let's see. So I might even, so up here with this guy, I'm just gonna do a leaf here, or a line here, so that you can tell that there's a little leaf here. I'm gonna go in to kind of blend that out. And with this guy, same, I'm just gonna give it a little leaf or petal idea of a petal, idea of another petal over here. It's almost like a Y shape, I guess. Then I'm gonna just add some water at the bottom of that so it blends it out a little bit. Maybe add some dark under there. And then I'm going to let that dry. So I hope that you're getting a really important point here, and that is I do something and I let it dry and move on to a different part of the painting. So watercolor, you really want to let it dry in between stages. So I think I'm going to go ahead and work in this area again a little bit and kind of add some more details here. I think I'm going to go in with my white pen. I have a really big Posca pen. I would normally be grabbing my fine Posca pen right now, so if you bought a fine Posca pen, don't freak out because I'm grabbing my fat one. I'm just doing it because that's what I have right here. And I'm just going to go in and add some highlights at the top of my petals. And I might just use my finger to smudge that a little bit at the bottom. So I'm just doing kind of the same thing I did with the watercolor, but I'm just adding some lines there, adding some dimension, and then I'm using my finger to kind of blend that out. This has got some black on it. So at the top of the petals is where the light part is, because the sun's kind of shining down on this beautiful day. You know, I might even add some petals, and then I'm using my finger again to blend it out. I think I'll probably add a little center line here in this little leaf. Maybe even outline it. I'm just adding some fine white details. Same here, I'm just going to outline that leaf and then add a little center line just to give it some dimension. I'm going to add some white lines to this little flower. If you're doing this really loose, yours isn't going to look just like mine, because your watercolor is going to move around different than mine did, and so that's okay if it doesn't look exactly like mine. You don't want it to anyway, because you want it to be your own. So I'm just adding little details, maybe some lines in the background that there's something you don't know back here. Maybe some stuff up here at the my Posca pen is a little dried out, so that's not helpful. You can always go in with your colored pencils that you bought and use those with your watercolor, so you could add some stems in the background that are just kind of hanging out there. So that's a fun thing to add to your watercolor. Now, you don't have to do that, and if you don't have colored pencils, then don't worry about this stage. But they are also fun to work with the watercolors, so you can add those into your leaves that you've got going. You know, add some little highlights. You could use your white colored pencil instead of your Posca pen. Some people may have bought different pencils, and those are going to be more successful on the watercolor paper than they were on the black. The black is kind of a special deal because those work really well with it. I think I'll probably go into the stem here and add some colored pencil. think I will add some white colored pencil into that just because I can't find my fine Posca pen. So just another thing to remember about the, just as I'm thinking about it, the Prismacolor pencils is that, and I might even add some leaf lines here, is just that once you use the wax pencils, they're going to keep bleeding through the painting. So if you use the wax pencils and you paint over top of your painting, they're going to keep bleeding through. So just bear that in mind. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the first video series. So I'm just going to go up at the top of some of these flowers and add some white. It's not adding a ton, but just a little bit of dimension. I love using pencil. I have always used pencil with my acrylics, just because for whatever reason, for me, I just love the feeling of using pencil. So it's just always been a part of my process, I guess. Okay. So these are, I'm really going to mess you up here because I didn't put this on the list. These are the Stabilo, they're the Carb Othello pencils. You can get those on dickblick.com, and I'll try to remember that I used them and add them to the group before this actually comes out. I'm just going to add some flowers here.